"Endure it and be mine beyond eternity," said after the widow cried. "It hurts, but don't stop." She never imagined silence could feel so heavy. After her husband passed away, the house did not just become quiet. It felt empty in a way that pressed against her chest. Every room still looked the same, but nothing felt the same. The chair where he used to sit remained untouched. His shoes were still near the door. His cup stayed on the shelf exactly where he had left it. These small things hurt the most because they made it clear that he was gone, yet somehow still everywhere. In the first few days, people came often. Relatives, neighbors, and friends filled the house with voices and sympathy. They spoke softly, telling her to be strong, telling her that time would heal everything. She nodded and thanked them, even though she did not believe their words. When the visitors finally stopped coming and life returned to normal for everyone else, her real struggle began. The nights grew longer, and the days felt slow and endless. She was now a widow, a word she never thought would describe her so soon. She had loved deeply, trusted fully, and built her life around a future that suddenly disappeared. Every morning she woke up expecting to hear his voice or feel his presence beside her, only to be met with the same painful truth. He was not coming back. Accepting this reality felt impossible. She tried to stay busy at first. She cleaned the house more than necessary, washed dishes that were already clean, and rearranged furniture that did not need to be moved. She thought that if her hands stayed busy, her mind would stay quiet. But grief was patient. It waited for moments when she was alone. It came during late nights, early mornings, and quiet afternoons when nothing distracted her. At night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her own breathing. Her heart felt heavy, as if it carried a weight too large to bear. Memories played in her mind like a story she could not pause. Their first meeting, their shared laughter, the simple moments that once felt ordinary but now felt priceless, these memories did not comfort her. They made her ache. Sometimes she whispered his name, hoping that saying it out loud would bring him closer. Other times she stayed silent, afraid that if she spoke, the pain would spill out uncontrollably. Tears became familiar companions. She cried quietly, not wanting anyone to hear, not wanting to explain a pain that had no clear words. During the day, she tried to act normal. She went outside, greeted people politely, and answered questions with short replies. When people asked how she was doing, she said she was fine. It was easier than telling the truth. The truth was complicated and heavy. The truth was that she felt lost, broken, and unsure of how to continue living the life she once shared with someone else. There were moments when she questioned herself. She wondered if she could have done something differently. Maybe she should have noticed something earlier. Maybe she should have said certain words more often. These thoughts troubled her deeply. Even though she knew blaming herself would not change anything, her heart refused to listen to reason. Her home, once a place of comfort, now felt like a reminder of everything she had lost. Every corner held a memory. The kitchen reminded her of shared meals. The bedroom reminded her of quiet conversations and dreams they once spoke about. Even the windows reminded her of mornings they watched together. There was no escape from the past. Some days she felt numb. She moved through the hours without feeling much of anything. Other days the pain returned strongly, catching her off guard. She could be doing something simple, like folding clothes or drinking tea, when a wave of sadness suddenly overwhelmed her. These moments made her feel weak, even though she had done nothing wrong. She often wondered how other people survived such loss. She had heard stories of people moving on, rebuilding their lives, and finding happiness again. At that moment, those stories felt unreal. She could not imagine a future where her heart did not ache. She could not imagine loving life again. Faith and belief became confusing for her. Sometimes she prayed, asking for strength. Other times she felt angry and distant. She did not understand why this pain was necessary. She did not understand why love had to end this way. Her thoughts went in circles and answers never came. Loneliness became her greatest challenge. Even in a room full of people, she felt alone. No one could truly understand the depth of her loss. She missed being understood without speaking. She missed being known completely. That connection was gone, and nothing could replace it. Yet despite everything, she continued to wake up each morning. She did not know why. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was responsibility. Maybe it was something deep inside her that refused to give up, even when her mind wanted to rest from the pain. Each day felt like a test she did not choose, but had to face. There were moments when she felt exhausted, not physically, but emotionally. Carrying grief required energy she did not have. She wanted to break from feeling. She wanted silence in her heart, not just in her surroundings. But grief did not leave easily. It stayed, teaching her lessons she did not yet understand. As days passed, the sharp pain slowly changed into a deep, constant ache. It did not hurt less, but it hurt differently. She started to realize that this pain might never fully disappear. Instead, she would have to learn how to live with it. This thought frightened her, but it also prepared her for something she could not yet see. Deep inside, a quiet question began to form. How long could she endure this? She did not know the answer. All she knew was that surviving each day was already difficult enough. The future felt uncertain, and hope felt distant. Still, she remained standing, even when her heart felt like it might collapse. This was only the beginning of her journey, a journey shaped by loss, silence, and endurance. She did not yet know that her pain would challenge her in unexpected ways. She did not know that voices, lessons, and strength would emerge from places she never expected. For now, she only knew that she was hurting, and that continuing forward, even slowly, was the hardest thing she had ever done. The days after her loss began to blend into each other. Morning came, evening followed, and night returned again, but nothing truly changed. She felt as if she was walking through life without really being present. Her body moved, her hands worked, her eyes saw things, yet her heart remained somewhere far away. It was trapped in a moment that refused to fade. One afternoon, while sitting alone near the window, she finally allowed herself to speak her pain out loud. Her voice was low, almost trembling. She admitted that continuing like this hurt. Living without him hurt. Breathing without him felt wrong. She was tired of pretending that she was strong. The words came out slowly, but once they started, they would not stop. That was when a steady presence entered her life. It was not dramatic or sudden. It did not arrive with promises or comfort that sounded empty. This presence came quietly, through consistent words and firm understanding. It was someone who listened without interrupting, without rushing to fix her pain. For the first time since her loss, she felt truly heard. When she cried and said that it hurt to keep going, the response she received surprised her. Instead of gentle agreement, the words were calm but firm. Pain, she was told, was not something to escape from. It was something to walk through. Stopping would only leave her stuck in the same place forever. These words did not remove her sadness, but they gave it direction. At first, she resisted this idea. Why should she endure more pain when she had already suffered so much? She had loved deeply and lost completely. Had she not already endured enough? These questions filled her mind. She felt anger rise inside her, mixed with confusion. Endurance sounded like another burden placed on already tired shoulders. Still, those words stayed with her. They echoed in her thoughts during quiet moments. She began to realize that no one was asking her to forget or move on quickly. She was being asked to continue living even while hurting. This was different from the advice she had heard before. It did not deny her pain. It acknowledged it fully. Slowly, she started to notice small changes in herself. Instead of avoiding her feelings, she allowed them to exist. When sadness came, she did not push it away immediately. She sat with it, even when it made her uncomfortable. This was not easy. Many times she felt overwhelmed and wished she could return to numbness, but she remembered the words about endurance and tried again. She began writing her thoughts down, not for anyone else to read, but for herself. On the pages, she poured out everything she could not say out loud. Her fears, her regrets, her unanswered questions. Writing became a quiet companion during long nights. It did not solve her problems, but it gave her a place to release what her heart carried. There were days when she failed, days when she stayed in bed longer than she planned, days when she ignored the world and let tears fall freely. Instead of judging herself for these moments, she slowly learned to accept them. Healing, she realized, was not a straight path. It moved forward, backward, and sometimes not at all. The presence in her life did not disappear during these setbacks. Instead, it reminded her that endurance did not mean perfection. It meant returning to the path each time she lost her way. This idea comforted her more than she expected. She no longer felt pressure to be strong all the time. She only needed to keep trying. She began to look at her pain differently. It was no longer just an enemy. It became a teacher, though a harsh one. Through it, she learned patience. Through it, she learned how fragile and yet resilient the human heart could be. She discovered that feeling deeply was not a weakness, even when it caused suffering. As weeks passed, she noticed moments when the pain softened slightly. These moments were brief and unexpected. A warm cup of tea, a quiet walk, a kind word from a stranger. They did not erase her grief, but they reminded her that life still held small forms of comfort. She started paying attention to these moments, holding on to them carefully. She still missed her husband deeply. That love had not faded. If anything, it felt stronger in his absence. But instead of drowning in memories, she began to honor them quietly. She spoke to him in her thoughts, sharing her struggles and small victories. This connection gave her strength rather than sorrow. There were nights when she cried and admitted that enduring still hurt. She did not hide this truth anymore. Pain was part of her daily life, but now it no longer felt meaningless. It felt like a process she was moving through, step by step, even if she could not see the end. The firm voice that encouraged endurance never demanded speed. It never said she had to be better by a certain time. It simply reminded her that giving up would take away any chance of peace in the future. This reminder stayed with her, especially during moments when exhaustion tried to pull her back into despair. She began to understand that endurance was not about forcing happiness. It was about allowing herself to exist fully, even when happiness felt distant. It was about showing up for life, even when life felt unfair. This understanding did not come easily, but once it settled in her heart, it changed how she faced each day. Slowly, she started creating a routine again. Simple things, waking up at the same time, taking care of her surroundings, eating meals with intention. These actions grounded her. They reminded her that she was still part of the world, still responsible for herself, still alive. Her pain had not disappeared. Some days it still returned with full force, but now she had tools to face it. Words, reflection, patience, and the courage to endure. She was no longer standing still. She was moving, even if the movement was slow. In quiet moments, she wondered who she was becoming through the struggle. She was no longer the same woman she had been before. Loss had changed her deeply, but endurance was shaping her into someone stronger, more aware, and more compassionate. She did not yet know where this path would lead. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time since her loss, she felt something new growing within her. Not joy, not peace, but determination. A quiet decision to continue, no matter how difficult it felt. This was the stage where endurance stopped being just an idea and became a choice she made every day, sometimes every hour. And though it still hurt, she understood that stopping would hurt even more. Her journey was far from over. The pain still walked beside her, but now she was no longer walking alone, and that made all the difference. Endurance slowly became something more than just a word to her. It turned into a daily decision. Every morning when she opened her eyes, she felt a familiar weight in her chest. Some days it was lighter, other days it pressed down so hard that even breathing felt difficult. Still, she made a quiet choice to get up, not because she suddenly felt strong, but because staying still felt worse. She began to understand that pain did not ask for permission. It arrived whenever it wanted. Sometimes it came with memories, other times it appeared without warning, leaving her confused and tired. Instead of fighting it every time, she tried a different approach. She acknowledged it. She told herself that pain was present, but it did not control her completely. There were moments when she felt proud of herself for making it through a difficult day. These moments were small and private. No one applauded her effort. No one noticed how much energy it took just to function normally. But she noticed, and that slowly began to matter. She started to realize that endurance was not about being fearless. Fear still existed. She feared the future. She feared loneliness. She feared becoming someone unrecognizable to herself. Yet, even with these fears, she kept moving forward. This realization gave her a strange sense of power. Fear no longer stopped her, it simply walked beside her. Some days she sat quietly and thought about how much she had changed. Before her loss, life had felt predictable. Plans made sense. Dreams felt reachable. Now, everything felt uncertain. At first, this uncertainty frightened her. Over time, she began to accept it as part of her new reality. Acceptance did not mean approval. It simply meant she stopped wasting energy resisting what she could not change. Her memories no longer felt as sharp as before. They still hurt, but they also carried warmth. She remembered small details she once ignored. The way he listened patiently. The way he noticed things others missed. These memories made her smile briefly before tears followed. She learned that both could exist at the same time. She noticed changes in how she interacted with others. She listened more. She spoke less. When people shared their problems, she did not rush to give advice. Pain had taught her that sometimes presence mattered more than words. This understanding made her more compassionate, even when she was still healing herself. There were moments when she questioned her progress. She wondered if she was truly healing or just learning how to hide her pain better. These doubts came especially on days when sadness returned strongly. But then she remembered how she used to feel at the beginning, completely lost, unable to see beyond her grief. Compared to that, she had come far. Endurance required patience, and patience was not natural for her. She wanted clear signs of improvement. She wanted to feel better quickly. But healing moved at its own pace. Some days felt like progress. Other days felt like setbacks. Slowly, she accepted that both were part of the same journey. She began doing small things that once brought her comfort. Simple walks, quiet music, sitting under the open sky. These moments did not feel joyful at first. They felt neutral. Over time, neutrality itself felt like relief. It was a break from constant pain. She also learned to forgive herself. Forgive herself for moments of weakness. Forgive herself for days when she could not meet her own expectations. This forgiveness did not come easily. She had always believed strength meant control. Now she learned that strength also meant kindness toward herself. Her endurance started to shape her identity. She was no longer only defined by her loss. She was defined by how she carried it. This realization surprised her. She had not chosen this path, but she was choosing how to walk it. Sometimes she imagined what her husband would say if he could see her now. She hoped he would be proud of her effort, even when she felt unsure. This thought gave her comfort. It reminded her that enduring did not mean leaving love behind. It meant carrying love forward in a new form. There were nights when she still cried quietly. Those nights had not disappeared. But now, after the tears, she felt a sense of calm rather than complete exhaustion. Crying no longer felt like failure. It felt like release. She started noticing how pain softened other parts of her life. She appreciated kindness more deeply. She noticed beauty in simple moments. She understood emotions with greater clarity. Pain had taken much from her, but it had also given her perspective she never had before. Endurance also taught her boundaries. She learned when to rest and when to push forward. She stopped forcing herself to meet other people's expectations of healing. Her journey was her own. No timeline could define it. At times, she felt a quiet connection to something beyond herself, a sense that her struggle was part of a larger story. This belief did not remove her pain, but it gave it meaning. Meaning made endurance easier. She noticed that she no longer feared pain as much as before. She knew it would come and go. She trusted herself to survive it. This trust was new, and it felt powerful. She was becoming someone who could face hardship without losing herself completely. Her life still felt incomplete. Loss had left a space that could not be filled, but she learned that emptiness did not mean uselessness. A life could still have value even with missing pieces. She began to plan small things again, not long-term dreams, but near goals, things she could look forward to. These plans helped her reconnect with the future slowly, without overwhelming herself. Endurance became her silent companion. It walked with her through ordinary days and difficult nights. It did not promise happiness. It promised survival, growth, and transformation. She understood now that pain would not define her ending. It was shaping her path, not controlling her destination. This understanding gave her quiet confidence. Though she still carried sorrow, she also carried strength she never knew she had. Each day she endured added another layer to that strength. Her journey continued, uncertain but purposeful. She was no longer just surviving. She was learning how to live again, carefully, honestly, and with courage. By this stage of her journey, the widow began to notice a quiet change within herself. The pain was still there, but it no longer felt like the only thing she carried. Something deeper had taken root, an understanding that love did not end the moment a life ended. This realization came slowly, not as a sudden thought, but as a feeling that grew stronger with time. She often reflected on her relationship and noticed how her love for her husband had evolved. In the beginning, love had felt physical and present. Later, after loss, it became painful and heavy. Now it felt calmer, more settled, and deeply connected to memory and meaning. It was no longer something that held her back. Instead, it quietly guided her forward. She realized that love did not disappear just because someone was no longer physically present. It transformed. It lived in lessons learned, values shared, and moments remembered. This understanding helped her release some of the fear she had carried about letting go. Letting go, she learned, did not mean forgetting. It meant allowing love to exist in a different form. Her heart slowly opened to the idea that she could still experience connection without betrayal. At first, this idea made her uncomfortable. She felt guilty whenever she found peace or comfort. It felt as though happiness was a sign of disloyalty. But over time, she understood that suffering endlessly would not honor the love she had shared. She began speaking about her husband with more ease. His name no longer caused her to freeze. Instead of only pain, there was gratitude in her voice. Gratitude for the years they had, for the memories they created, and for the person she became through loving him. This shift surprised her, but it also gave her peace. As her understanding deepened, she found herself drawn toward helping others who were struggling. She did not offer advice. She simply listened. Her presence carried quiet empathy. People felt safe around her because she did not try to fix their pain. I would be so happy. She understood that pain needed space more than solutions. Through these connections, she realized that her suffering had created room in her heart for compassion. The same pain that once isolated her now connected her to others. This realization gave her struggle a sense of purpose. Her endurance was no longer just for survival. It was also for growth. There were moments when she felt close to something eternal. Not in a dramatic way, but in a peaceful sense of continuity. Love, she realized, was not bound by time. It existed beyond moments, beyond physical presence. This belief comforted her deeply. It helped her understand that some bonds were not broken by loss. She started to see her late husband not only as someone she lost, but as someone who remained part of her inner world. His influence was present in her choices, her values, and her strength. This connection did not trap her in the past. It supported her as she moved forward. Her nights became calmer. She still thought about him, but her thoughts no longer spiraled into despair. Instead, they felt like quiet conversations within her heart. She shared her progress, her doubts, and her hopes. These moments felt grounding rather than painful. The idea of love beyond loss reshaped her understanding of life itself. She realized that life was not just about holding on tightly. It was also about trusting that meaningful connections could survive change. This trust gave her courage to face uncertainty. She began to feel comfortable with the silence around her. Silence no longer felt empty. It felt reflective. It allowed her to hear her own thoughts clearly. In that space, she discovered a sense of self that had been hidden beneath grief. Her identity expanded. She was still a widow, but she was also more than that. She was someone who had loved deeply and learned deeply. This understanding gave her dignity. Her story was not defined by loss alone, but by the strength that followed it. She found herself thinking about eternity in a different way. Eternity was no longer a distant concept. It felt present in moments of kindness, memory, and connection. It was not about time without end, but about love without limits. This perspective allowed her to forgive life for its unfairness. She stopped demanding explanations she would never receive. Instead, she accepted that some things could be meaningful even without clear answers. Acceptance brought her peace she had not expected. Her heart, once weighed down by grief, now carried both sorrow and hope. These emotions existed together, without conflict. She learned that healing did not mean replacing pain with happiness. It meant making room for both. There were still moments when sadness returned suddenly. A familiar song, a familiar place, a familiar date. But now, sadness no longer destroyed her balance. She allowed it to pass through her gently. It trusted herself to remain steady. She also noticed that she had become more patient with life. She no longer rushed toward the future or clung desperately to the past. She lived more fully in the present moment. This presence brought her a quiet form of joy. The promise she once feared, that enduring pain would lead to something greater, began to feel true. She understood that enduring had reshaped her heart in ways comfort never could. Through loss, she had discovered depth. Through pain, she had found meaning. Her journey was not complete, but it had reached a turning point. She was no longer walking forward only because she had to. She was walking forward because she wanted to understand life more deeply. Love, she realized, did not trap her in memory. It carried her toward wisdom. It reminded her that even after great loss, the heart could still grow. She stood at a place where grief and gratitude met, where memory and hope coexisted, where endurance transformed into acceptance. This stage of her journey prepared her for what came next. A life shaped not by fear of loss, but by trust and love that continued beyond it. By the time she reached this stage of her journey, the widow no longer measured her life by how much pain she felt each day. Pain was still present, but it was no longer the center of everything. Something quieter and stronger had taken its place. She had learned how to live with her memories without being controlled by them. Her mornings felt different now. She still woke up alone, but the loneliness no longer shocked her system. It felt familiar, manageable. She greeted the day calmly, without the panic that once filled her chest. There was a sense of balance she never thought she would find again. She often reflected on how far she had come. In the beginning, surviving a single day felt impossible. Now days passed with a gentle rhythm. Not perfect, not joyful all the time, but steady. This steadiness became her new form of peace. She no longer felt the need to explain her pain to others. Those who understood stayed close. Those who did not slowly drifted away. This no longer hurt her. She had learned that not everyone was meant to walk the entire path with her. Her connection to her late husband had also changed. be so happy it no longer felt heavy or distant. It felt present in a quiet way. She carried his memory with respect, not sorrow. He was no longer a wound. He was part of her story. She spoke to him less in words and more through actions, through kindness, through patience, through the way she treated others with care. In this way, his influence lived on, not in sadness, but in purpose. She began to understand that endurance had given her a gift she never asked for: clarity. She saw life differently now. She understood how fragile time was and how meaningful small moments could be. A simple smile, a shared silence, a gentle breeze, all of these felt important. She stopped chasing happiness as a goal. Instead, she focused on meaning. Meaning felt deeper and more lasting. It did not depend on circumstances. It came from how she lived, how she responded, and how she honored her experiences. The idea of eternity no longer felt distant or frightening. Eternity, she realized, existed in the impact people left behind. It existed in love that shaped lives long after physical presence ended. In that sense, nothing truly meaningful was ever lost. She no longer feared the future the way she once did. Uncertainty still existed, but it no longer controlled her. She trusted herself now. She trusted that she could face whatever came next, just as she had faced what came before. There were moments when she felt gratitude, not for the loss, but for the strength that grew from it. This gratitude did not erase her grief. It stood beside it, reminding her that pain and growth could exist together. She became comfortable with who she had become. She was softer in some ways, stronger in others, more patient, more thoughtful, less afraid of silence, less afraid of truth. Her life was not filled with grand changes. It was filled with small, meaningful choices, choosing peace over bitterness, choosing patience over anger, choosing presence over regret. These choices shaped her days more than any dramatic event ever could. She sometimes met people who were at the beginning of their own painful journeys. She recognized the look in their eyes, the confusion, the exhaustion. She did not rush them. She did not offer empty comfort. She simply stood with them, as someone once stood with her. Through these moments, she realized her endurance had become a quiet strength others could lean on. This realization gave her life a sense of continuation. Her pain had not been wasted. She understood now that being beyond eternity did not mean escaping life. It meant living in a way that honored what could never be taken away. Love. Memory. Meaning. She no longer asked why life had unfolded the way it did. That question no longer mattered. What mattered was how she chose to live with the answer she was given. Her heart felt complete, even with its missing pieces. She accepted that some spaces would always remain open. These spaces did not weaken her. They reminded her of how deeply she had loved. As time moved forward, she carried herself with quiet dignity. She did not hide her past, but she was not trapped by it. She lived honestly, gently, and with intention. She had endured. Not perfectly, not easily, but truthfully. And in doing so, she had discovered that endurance was not about surviving pain. It was about transforming it. Her journey did not end with happiness or sorrow. It ended with understanding, an understanding that love outlived loss, that strength grew from struggle. That eternity was not something to wait for. It was something to live. And so she continued forward, not as someone broken by life, but as someone shaped by it, calm, and finally at peace.